to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thanks for coming on the show today for your third time.
Yes, and you know, anytime that I can be on your show, I will be here.
Well, this is exciting because it's something different than we talked about.
It is.
So what made, I mean, you're like the perfect person. When I saw that you were running, I was like, well, that just made so much sense in my head. So what's prompted you to run now?
That's probably one of the second questions. The first question is, does it pay? No, it's volunteer work. So
you never do anything that pays. That doesn't surprise me.
I know, right? So what prompted me to run for Clovis Unified School Board? It seems like an easy transition or to add, because for 34 years, and you know me well, not 34 years, but you know that I've been an advocate for children.
Right.
28 years as a classroom teacher, and then I went to County Office of Ed and I built programs, worked with California Department of Education, and then I did research on how children learn. It's all about the children. Then, of course, in 2018, I became the executive director for CASA, and worked with children and for children who have a lot of needs, and just advocating for them to even out the playing field. So when the school board opportunity became available, I thought, I'm ready. I have the experience. I have the education.
You like to work hard without getting paid that much? I love how you just ran that resume. Yeah,
and I just thought I would have a unique perspective, an experience to offer what I call going home back to Clovis Unified. I spent 18 years there.
That's what I'm like, this makes so much sense. I'm like, but why this year? Because I feel like, you could have ran anytime. Why is it like this was the year where you're like, okay, I'm ready?
There was a series of things, but it was, I had been asked before, and I thought about it before. Yes. And I wanted to make sure that if I do anything, it's going to be, I'm ready and I'm dedicated and everything else is in place. And so 4 years ago when I had thought about it, I felt I could do so much more at CASA in terms of building up the events and the number advocacy. And 4 years down the road, I knew it was the right time.
Oh yeah, because you were kind of newly director at that point too, so you didn't want to give half-ass here or there. So now you're like,
yep, absolutely. So and I am asked quite often, will you do this? Will you join this? And I have to look at my time commitment, and also too, if it fits my personal criteria because it is an investment of time, and we all know, right? We're limited in time.
And so what are you going to do as a board member in the school board district? What is going to be your role?
So I would be one of 7 people, and this is the first year that it's not a general election where everyone who lives in Clovis Unified can select, because this is the first year, of course, and we're seeing I am representing a certain area, primarily
District 6.
District 2.
District 2.
And so it is north of Shepherd, with a little cutout just east of
oh, that's right. You guys
Clovis
have it
West.
You guys have it. It's a school board district.
Yes.
I'm ready to see all these little things.
Right, and you're right. A district requires for something else. So I am just excited. I'm out there talking to people, listening. And I know, yes, I'll be representing Clovis North, Clovis West, but truly, and you know me well, I'm representing all the children.
That's what, I mean, because you're spanned everywhere. You do a lot of events there, but then you have the Casa downtown. You have everything. It's all spread out.
Yes, and that's the thing, right? I have been able to connect when I was at County Office of Ed with people up at the state, and then here in Fresno and Madera County, it's all the different resources that I have been able to tap into and work in groups to just really better the lives of children and families in the county.
So what would your role be? What's something that you want to bring to the table you haven't seen done in this role?
Well, I think for every student, right, in every school, the challenge has been post-COVID. And during COVID, there was learning loss, right? And because not everyone could learn remotely.
And that's when you started at Cosby. Of course, you like the challenges. We were like, COVID happened. Let's see what we could do. Right? To make kids with challenges have even more challenges.
So we navigated that. And so to bring back and to support is how can we go back and focusing on what's important. That's the academics, meeting the needs of the children, removing any barriers to learning, and connecting them with resources. So it's, I was hired by the original founding superintendent. So don't date me because he was around for a very long time. And so they call it, his very much his quotes and his platitudes. And it's all about the kids. And I have said this because I was hired by Larry Powell when I went to County Office of Ed. It's evening out the playing field for children. So between two incredible community educational leaders, I'm set. I'm ready.
And the funny thing about all this, and it's not funny, it's that you're the perfect person because you do care about the kids. But then everyone's like, well, it is political. How do you separate the politics from the children and still stay true to yourself and your mission and everything? Is that going to be a challenge, or what have you decided on that? You
had it in your question. One is to remain true to myself and true to my values, which I have a very strong value system. And I think as you speak to people and they describe, who is Wilma Tom Hashimoto, I have really high integrity and I guard it. So in terms of my decision making, it doesn't compromise my values. I will always do what's best, my North Star, for the kids. People have asked me, it's like, so do you have, other aspirations of seeking elected office? And the look is, well, no. My track record is I truly just want to serve children.
And what have you heard that's a big problem right now that you want to tackle when you get into that role? What's a big problem with Clovis schools right now?
It truly is, like I had addressed, was really the academics.
The post-COVID problem.
Post-COVID, let's get to that. External factors. But really, my core value is let's address the academics. The other thing would be safety, right? Safety, the external, is someone coming on the campus? That's what people think when they think of safety. I'm talking about let's go upstream and figure out the problem before it comes a problem of the internal. So what are some internal safety issues? Bullying. How do we make sure that we address that so the behavior doesn't continue or escalate? Catch it when it's young. And then third is, it goes along hand in hand with COVID, but now I hope we're normalizing the mental wellness of all the kids so that we can address that, the stress, the depression, self-harming, self-cutting, all these things. It goes hand in hand. If we can address safety, if we can address mental health, we're taking care of the child here.
Yeah,
so they can learn.
And that's probably a big challenge you have in Clovis schools because it's highly competitive. I just, went to the Clovis West graduation this last time. You see everybody that's having all these, there was a few kids that had just so many accolades and just do so many things and were going to these great universities. And this other kids I felt good and lost the shuffle. And that was just me watching. I don't know, no one was saying anything. But when you talk about bullying and expectations and impression, I was thinking, man, if I was not, one of those kids or on the other end, maybe I'd be sad. You kind of put yourself in that space. So what have you heard with that? And what are some of the things you can do to overcome that? Because is there a thing to do to overcome those feelings?
Well, right, and it's and they have been addressing across the county, and Clovis Unified has been very much a part of leading the pack in terms of identifying the problem and getting in front of it. It is just so widespread. I personally know, and I think I shared it on the last program, was during COVID and the impact on my children in foster care was I went ahead and what's the problem? What do we need to do? And we trained 300 people in being trauma informed.
Impressive.
Yes. So I understand trauma, and we all went through a pandemic. I think we were all traumatized. And so now it's really going back to what was it like 3 years ago? And we have to evolve. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
But we need to still work on getting them academics, removing barriers, quality facilities, and then absolutely mental health just percolates top, as well as safety.
What are some of the ways you guys have overcome bullying in CASA? Because I would imagine there was a lot of that there. What were some of the ways that you guys overcame that?
So our children were not necessarily the ones that were bullying because of the mere fact that they are sometimes transferred mid-year to a new school.
Oh no, I feel like they were bullied. I feel like they're probably the ones being bullied.
They were
so
the
I was
ones
wondering
being
how you dealt
bullied.
with that.
Yes, right. So it is in terms of schools are recognizing it too. It's not like a new concept, but it is one of bringing it. We say that breathe the voice of the foster youth and empower them, right? And so being able, for educational rights holder, to be able to say, this is what's going on. More importantly, we need to recognize that children need to be able to speak up and let others know that, hey, this is what's going on. So give them the words, give them the empowerment, and also be the one that's present to be able to say, I got you. You had a hard day, but let's see what we can do. Tomorrow's going to be a better day.
So is that a lot of you educating the teachers and the faculty and everything on that?
What's nice is through, we belong to the network improvement in the community. So there are 50 agencies that participate, all surrounding children in foster care. Like, what can be done better? This is probably a subset of the children that are being served across the county.
Right.
But because of the unique needs, additional needs, there's the focus right there. So that's why I think in terms of my qualifications to be a school board member, I truly have been a part of the system.
You're the most qualified.
So, thank you. But yes, because I see what the needs are, I've been a part of the solution. And that's where I feel I'm able to bring solutions, have discussions, be a part of a collaborative team to support.
That's awesome. And as school boards, you guys work a lot closely with the teachers and educators and principals on all of those needs of the kids.
Right, and so yes, and yes. And it is truly the role of the board, because most of us have jobs. That's
right.
The role of the school board. That's why it's unpaid.
Exactly.
So that in terms of relying on the day-to-day operations, and I know this because I have my own board, right? So one is my own board relies on me for the day-to-day operations of CASA, and I bring to them some high-level things or policies to help and advise.
Okay.
So translating that, and that's where I think it gets a little confusing for some people, the roles of boards. So my role as a school board member is one, the hiring and evaluation of the superintendent. That's the role of most boards. Then it is also to be able to, one, as issues, policies, communication liaison. That is where it comes to us. Like, I am going to be representing Area 2. Area 2, that would be children, parents, and faculty, everyone in that area. As well as I have to recognize there's 6 other areas to be represented. Having said that, I would have to say, what is it? What are the issues you're just asking me? I would do my due diligence to go, like policies made up in Sacramento and things like that. I want to know, what was the intent of the lawmakers? And what options do they think? And be part of like, okay, I'm hearing that there's discussion on this. What is best? Peel off all the layers, the noise. What's best for the kids? Bottom line.
Oh, that's so great. You're going to be so great. I really hope they win. So we can only vote for you if we live, you said, between Shepherd and...
So it is huge.
It's a big area, but it's...
Okay, so it goes from Friant all the way up the hill past Academy, right?
Oh, okay.
The whole from Fresno through Clovis. And then it is north of Shepherd, but at Willow, it goes diagonal. I don't know how to best explain it.
That's good.
Right? And then there is a section north of Shepherd that belongs to another area. There's an area south of Shepherd, like right by just west of Clovis West in that area, like around Cole, Audubon. That is my area.
So you really got to look at your ballot to see if she falls in.
Because people said, I want to vote for you. I don't see your name. It's like,
oh, that's so disappointing.
Yes.
Oh, man. So who are you running against? Or is it just, it's not like that, you're just running it?
So there's actually 2 other candidates. And this is what I say. It's that one is, we're all running, and we know that we're running as basically volunteers. We're not being paid. So I ask people to just do the research.
Just like you do with everything.
Yeah,
research.
So, you're right, and research the candidates. And what I always say is, one is there someone who's been in education and administration, has a fiscal background, and is living the work? And look at that. And for that reason, I would say it is me.
No, I totally agree. That's awesome. And about CASA, if we want to go and see all the upcoming events and where to donate for that or volunteer, where do we go to for that?
Oh, thank you so much for incorporating that every single time. Go to our website, www.casafresnomadera.org. We just had our crab feed. We were talking about it earlier. Sold out, 600.
Most of your events always get sold out.
It does. And so coming up, we are partnering with Classic Events. We have the Monster Dash. It's a run on October 26th at Woodward Park, starting at Shinzen Garden. Get great use out of your Halloween costume, and it's just a fun, you can walk it, you can run it.
We're going to run in costume? Wow.
Yeah, so I got mine. I'm going to be Wonder Woman. And so yes, you could do the 3K, 5K, children are welcome. It's just, can you imagine all of us at the starting line in costume? Yes, and so we'll have definitely a table where you can learn more about becoming an advocate. And then of course, we're so blessed to be part of the Home of Hope. Granville Home of Hope, where we're selling tickets for $100, and that person, all you need is one ticket to win, could win a $600,000 home, brand new Granville, over at Park West. Where's that at?
Hey, those are better odds than the lottery.
Right? Oh my goodness, I've seen the home, like brand new, and they could win. Or what else? There's lots of secondary prizes worth a minimum of $250 plus a 2-year lease on a Lexus.
Wow.
Yes.
Those are some pretty good odds.
And then on top of that, you'll be able to support CASA or one of 9 other agencies. But if you buy your ticket through CASA, we'll be able to receive $100.
So when is that? When do we have to sign up for that by?
The home goes up for, the drawing is on December 4th. The other drawing's on November 20th for the car. But if you can get your tickets, because we're selling the bundles, which means you buy 2 tickets, you're automatically in the drawing for the Lexus.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and those are limited number of bundles.
And it goes to a good cause.
Excellent.
Better
cause.
odds in the lottery, except your ticket goes something good.
Right. Directly, the $100, you buy it through CASA, it goes to CASA, and we're able to serve additional youth.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really hope you win.
Oh, me too.
Well, thank you for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, so you have this unique journey. I think this is the first time anyone's done this particular journey. Can you tell our viewers about what you're doing?
Well, I'm traveling to every place called Belfast in the world. So it's just a little bit of a personal odyssey, if you like. And why? Well, there's no reason why, particularly. When people ask me why you're doing it, my answer is, well, why not?
I like that. And you're from Belfast. Is that what spawned this?
Yeah, I'm from Belfast, in the original Belfast in Ireland, and the whole thing started back in 1982 when I was visiting South Africa to see my sister who lived there, and we came across a town called Belfast, and being somewhat, less mature than I am these days, I foolishly announced that one day I'm going to ride my motorbike, from Belfast to Belfast, i.e. Belfast, South Africa, to Belfast in Ireland.
Oh my goodness.
And that's where it started. And for a long time, that's where it stopped. But I always had it in mind as this was something I was going to do at some time. And I almost got to do it on occasions. But, life interfered, and you had to work, there was all sorts of things. So it took me only 38 years to actually realise this event of riding from South Africa back to Ireland.
So how long has this journey taken you so far? You're not even done with it yet. You're almost done. I mean, you're close to the finish line.
Well, the South African one took me a year, all but 4 days. And I arrived back in Belfast 2 days before the world was closed down for COVID. So I arrived there, and
so you just made it.
Yeah, just as I came up through Italy, COVID was hard on my heels. I was just staying.
You were out riding COVID. That's hysterical.
Yeah. So that one took just about a year. I mean, it wasn't a year on the road. There were bits. I had an accident. I fell down a step and broke my foot, which took a couple of months to heal up. And then there were waits for visas and various other things. So it was 8 months on the road, but the trip itself took a year. And then this trip across North America has taken me, I finished 6 months to the day. I landed in the last Belfast here in California, 6 months to the day from I started.
Oh my goodness.
So now I'm recovering, preparing for stage 3, which is the southern hemisphere. So I'm back down south to New Zealand next, and then across to Australia. And after that, it will only leave me one Belfast to go to, and that's in Jamaica.
Wow. And you've been having your bike shipped everywhere
Well, I didn't ship it, obviously. I rode it up through Africa.
Oh, yeah, no, you're sure. I'm just saying over continental.
But I shipped it from London to Halifax in Canada, which is where I started the North American trip. So it flew, put it on a plane, and they made me put it in the hold. They said it's too big for carry-on, so I had to take it put it in the hold.
Do you ever worry about it? Because that's like your baby now. It's like such a part of you. Do you ever worry they're going to mess with it when they have to ship it off?
No, not really. I mean, you choose a shipper who has a good reputation, from other people that if you're shipping bikes and cars and stuff around the world, if you mess it up, people fairly quickly learn that you mess it up, and you don't sort of stay in business for too long. But but in terms of being my baby, I had an accident here in Ohio, and I got my bike recovered to somebody I was staying with, and the insurance assessor came out, and he found a bit of a damage to the frame of the bike. So he told me, that's it, it's a write-off. It's written off. It's totaled, I think. Is that what you say? Is that what you call it here? Yeah. So he said the policy, the company policy basically is if there's damage to the frame, you have to get a new frame, or the bike's totaled. And of course, my bike being 50 years old, there's not too many new frames around for it. So he was telling me that was it. And I said, no, you can't do that. I've had this bike for 50 years. Again, I'm not leaving it here. So to cut a long story short, there were 3 options. They totaled the bike, gave me the money, and that was it. They totaled the bike, gave me the money, sold it back to me as a salvage, with a salvage title, or I just carried on and dropped the claim and carried on, fixed the bike and carried on. So there were some complications because the bike's registered in France and I have imported it temporarily. So there's going to be lots and lots of paperwork involved if they took the bike off me. So in the end, they decided that they would just pay me out and I could keep the bike.
So will you still have an offset frame right now?
No. Well, there's a little bit broke off. It wasn't serious damage, but it's just their policy. Any damage at all, and that's it. They write it off. So I just got somebody to come in and weld the part back on and fix the bike and carry it on.
Oh my goodness! As we're talking to the other rider that was surprised that you're riding that bike all around. You've had that bike since it was made, pretty much.
Well, pretty much since 1978. Back when this bike came out first, it was like every boy's dream. I want one of these, and of course it was mine too. So I was able to afford one, and I bought the bike when it was 4 years old in 1978. And I rode it around for a couple of years. I was a student, and I rode it around through rain, hail, and snow. Interestingly, there's one story I tell about it. It was always difficult to start when it got cold and wet and sort of damp. So I used to carry a blowtorch around in my pannier. And in an evening when I'd come out to start the bike and it wouldn't start, I'd light up the blowtorch and get in underneath the petrol tank and sort of warm it up a bit.
Oh my God!
Not the petrol tank, the engine. Warm it up a bit, and then it would start, and I'd be able to go home. But yeah, so I rode it as a student for a bit, and then again...
People must have looked at you funny when you were on the side of the street with a blowtorch. They're like, what's this man doing?
Under a petrol tank, or a gas tank, you call it, I suppose. But then I had to buy a car. I needed a car, and because I was moving from hospital to hospital as a student. And I couldn't afford the car and fix the bike, so the bike was parked outside my parents' house. And one weekend I came home and sort of looked at it and thought, oh, it looks sad there. So I took it apart that weekend, put it into boxes, and it stayed there for 25, 30 years nearly. Until I was planning this trip, and I was thinking about buying myself a bike to, a suitable adventure tour, one of these big, BMW GSs.
The kind most of people would go on a long track.
That sort of thing. And I looked at the price and thought, I'm not paying that much money for a motorbike. You must be kidding. So then I thought, well, I have a bike in the shed. I've been talking about rebuilding the bike for as long as I've been planning this trip. So I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I rebuilt the bike from scratch. And then I rode it back up to Belfast.
So how many miles did it start with when you started it versus now?
I think it had about 25,000 or thereabouts on it when I started, and we're now just over 65,000. So I put about 40,000 miles on it on these 2 trips.
Oh my goodness. This is so fascinating, and it's really cool because you were telling me, and I'd never heard of this, that you've been staying at different places. It's like a network for...
Yeah, I had never heard of it either until I got here and somebody mentioned it to me. It's a network called Bunka Biker, which is basically a network of bikers who offer accommodation to other bikers who are traveling around the country. And it's done. There's a Facebook group, and it's done on a web page. And you basically look at the web page and see where you're going, and you find somebody who is in that area, and you make contact with them and say, I'm coming over next Thursday. Can I come and stay for a night? Or, a couple of nights if you need a couple of nights there for whatever reason. Have
you met cool people doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Because you've met people doing the same passion you have. I bet they're very fascinated by you.
It's again, yeah. I mean, people just, it's one of the things that has really impressed me on the trip is just the generosity, hospitality that people offer, and their kindness and their willingness to sort of say, yes, come on in, and and they're not. They vary in terms of their their financial situation. They vary. Some places you go, it's a very, very posh, nice place. Other places it's a much more modest place. Still nice, but it's much more modest, and the people are much more modest. But you still have that same hospitality, that same generosity. Where if you think, oh, I lost such and such, oh, I have one of those, and they'll give it to you. So yeah, it's been amazing, and what people offer varies. Some people just offer you a bed or a place to pitch your tent. Other people give you the full sort of the full 9 yards. You get sort of a bed, you get your own bathroom, you get fed, you get watered. And you get your laundry done in some places, which can be quite important if you're only traveling with
So
2.5 or 3 changes of clothes.
You've learned to really be a minimalist on this trip.
Well, I learned that actually on the first trip. That was so. I travel with 3 t-shirts, 2 pairs of shorts, which come apart at the legs. So I have 2 pairs of shorts and 1 pair of legs. And then I have my riding gear, and it was really one thing that I realized towards the end of that trip. We've got all these belongings that we surround ourselves with, all these things that we think are essential to our survival. And on a trip like this, you just realize
you don't need anything.
You don't need any of that stuff. It really is just an encumbrance, and you can get along with 3 t-shirts and 2 pairs of socks. Who needs a wardrobe full of clothes when you've got a sink that you can wash your clothes in, or a shower, which is what I normally do. You get in the shower and you just have a wash with your t-shirt on, and then you take it off and dry it, and that's how you do your laundry.
So what were some of the challenges that you encountered? I imagine weather was a big one.
Well, weather, when I started on this particular trip, I started in Canada in April, and it was cold.
I bet.
It was cold. One day I went out, it was -7 Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's probably, 32? It's probably in the 20s or something like that. I don't know. And that was cold, and there were days when the longest I could ride was an hour, and then you just sort of got frozen solid, so you have to stop. Somebody told me up in Canada, one of the ladies I stayed with first off, she said, Tim Hortons will become your favourite place. Not for the coffee, but just to go and warm up.
Oh my goodness, and that was true?
And it was true. The first day after I left her house, I was into Tim Hortons just to warm up. So that was a bit of a challenge. And then there were a few sort of heavy downpours of rain, but I missed out on the hurricane that came up through Florida. Not Helene, the one that came up before that.
Oh, thank goodness.
I was staying with somebody, and I had planned to stay with him on the Saturday night and the Sunday night and leave on the Monday. But we were watching the TV on the Saturday night and what was coming our way, and I sort of looked at him and said, I think I'm going to leave tomorrow. And that was the Sunday, and on the Sunday night his house got flooded.
Wow.
So
good choice.
I got out just in time. It was still battered a bit and still got wet a bit, but at least I was out and safe. So
did you ever get sick on this where you got sick and you had to stop?
Nope.
That's good.
Nope. And not on the other trip either. So I travelled up through Africa, I didn't get sick once. I travelled this trip and didn't get sick once, so touch wood. It'll carry on that way. And as I said, I had an accident on this trip, which was a fairly minor accident, but I injured my knee, and it sort of swole up like this, and I couldn't bend my knee, so that delayed me for about 3 weeks while that settled down.
Oh, okay, that is kind of a big delay.
And but I took the opportunity. I just took a break and went back home for a couple of weeks, see the family, see the kids, and and recover. And then I came back again. And it's been an interesting. This is my first trip to the States. I I attended a conference in Washington once for about a week or 4 days or something, and I went to Disney in Florida, and that was the only time I've been to the States
so
before.
you really got up close and personal with North America.
Yeah, so I did it all in one big bite.
That is interesting. And so you've been blogging about these journeys. You got to tell us how we can look at your blog. How often do you update it?
Well, I try and keep it sort of updated, 2 or 3 times a week, but I get behind once. I haven't done it since I finished traveling. Now I haven't actually updated, and some people complain. They keep me to task.
You got fans.
Well, I haven't got an email yet.
Right.
I said no, I haven't updated it just yet. So the final few days have got to be updated. But it's done. I think it's done as far as Belfast, California, I think. But anybody who wants to read it, Belfast 2, number 2, Belfast to Belfast by bike.com.
That is so fascinating. Oh my goodness.
And it's up there. And if you have trouble sleeping, I tell everybody, have a read of the blog. It'll help you get to sleep.
Oh my gosh. So after you leave here, where are you going to go when you leave California?
The bike has to go off to New Zealand, so I take it up to San Francisco next week and leave it with the shipper there. And then I want them to try and deliver it sometime in January to New Zealand. It'll probably get there before that, but I've got somewhere I can store it. I'm going to go home for Christmas and New Year, and then because on these long trips there comes a time, I think, always when you just sort of think, I've had enough. I need a break. Because most of the time. Not always, but most of the time you're sort of traveling each day, and it becomes sort of a little bit just wearing. So you just like to stop, and that's the beauty of Bunker Biker. Obviously you gel better with some people than others. I mean, I have no complaints. There was nobody I didn't sort of get on with, or who didn't get on with me. I don't know which way to look at it. But there are others you gel with more, so you might sort of go there for a day and end up staying for 2 or 3 days or even longer. And some people are keen to have you around and want to show you around the area and go out for rides with you on the bike. But still, there are you get to a point where you think, oh, enough, and I'm sort of at that point now. I've finished. I finished
a good break.
And I could just carry straight on to New Zealand, but I think no, I need a break. And it'll be good to be home for Christmas. Have
you inspired other people? Do people write you with the blog and everything and be like, well, now I want to do this type of trip, or I want to do a trip with this type of thing? What have you heard?
Well, some people have I have one of the chaps I stayed with. He has a very interesting sort of program for rides. He and his friend are planning. They're halfway through the thing, but their aim is to visit every ice cream parlor in Pennsylvania. So they go out for a ride for a couple of days, and they will just ride from ice cream parlor to ice cream parlor.
That's interesting.
And they have to have an ice cream. So if they do 3 ice cream parlors in a day, they have 3.
That's.
But yeah, people have sort of. I think it's hard. Most people have got commitments, and they've got family, or they've got wives and so on. I'm in a fortunate position in that my kids are growing up and they're independent now. I don't have a wife, so I can sort of do whatever I want, and fortunately, I'm able to afford to do it. Although I have to say, it doesn't actually cost that much. I mean, fuel obviously is the major one of the major costs, and accommodations can be a major cost as well. But I would just say to people, you can do it if you want to. I mean, you don't have to follow me and go off for 6 months. Go for a weekend. Go for a week. Just don't say I'd love to. Just do it. Just get up and do it, because it's not going to wait for you. It's not going to wait for you. You've got to sort of go for it, and because who knows the moment when we're going to just drop off this mortal coil. And as you get older, it becomes more and more likely.
Well, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm really glad that we were at the last part of your journey.
Yeah, well, it was a good place to finish. It wasn't planned that way.
Right.
The plan changed. But yeah, it's worked out very well. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me.
Okay, so tell our audience what you do.
Okay, well, what I do is I retired and I attended Tailhook 23, the Navy Carrier Aviation Convention in Reno. I didn't ask permission, I didn't sign up, I just showed up. And I was in heaven. We had Boeing, Raytheon, McDonnell Douglas, there were pilots, helicopter pilots, and I could kind of talk the language because I've been doing this my whole life. I've probably attended hundreds of air shows and a lot of periodicals. And I had such fun, and when I came home and just released all this excitement to my wife, she said, you need to start a podcast and talk about it. Because, my wife's only going to listen to so much about an AIM-7 missile in Vietnam that shot down a MiG-7.
Right.
So she did some research. She assumed the role of the producer. So she did research and started purchasing things, and we turned one of our daughters, our 3 daughters have moved out by this time, our last one, and we turned the bedroom into a studio. We bought sound absorbing boards.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a MacBook Pro, we got microphones, I got an account with Zoom, and I think for the moment we over purchased and we didn't know how to start a YouTube channel, and so we just, whatever stuck to the wall, that looked like we needed, we purchased. And so I have, on YouTube, I probably have like 270 followers, and Instagram I have like 770. And
we're going to have more. Everyone's going to sign up after this.
Oh, that'd be so cool. And you get a free sticker. And I've already had like 7 interviews. I've interviewed F-22 pilot, I've interviewed KC-135 pilot, F-111 pilot, pilot that did 2 tours in Vietnam, flying what's called the F-4 Phantom. The red, white, and blue Phantom, Thunderbird that you saw, he flew those in Vietnam. And he shared an interesting story about a pilot that was shot down and killed. And for several months, they would see him at the airbase, sitting down in a chair. And everybody just kind of ignored it and just continued with their mission, what they had to do. But usually, I don't know if you've experienced this, but you do like a pre-interview and get to know me, get to know you. And one of my interviewers shared how his father was killed in a B-29. And the accident was kind of famous in the aviation circle. Colonel Bud Anderson was one of the test pilots for the program on how to drag a fighter jet off the wingtip of a B-29. So when you get to where you're going to bomb, you let the jet go, he'll keep the bad guys away, then the bombing's done, and he'll rehook up and you drag them home. And that defeated the long-range purpose and having to air-to-air refuel. Well, this gentleman I'm interviewing, his father, when he disengaged the autopilot, the jet came all the way over on top of the B-29 and everybody was killed. And he told me, and there was some emotion, a little bit of emotion, even though this happened in late 40s, early 50s. So when we start filming, and in 3, 2, 1, welcome to the Flying Dutchman podcast show. And then as we're doing the interview, he goes, and then my father was killed. So anyway, I went ahead and did training at Laughlin. Now hold on a minute. We had a nice moment there in pre-interview, so I had to stop it, talk to him about it, and tell him, that, and I have the book, I showed him the book that I've read about this. I'm a little familiar with the situation with the F-84s, the B-29, and then he was able to talk about it, and then he just opened up even more. And so I'm having to learn interview skills. I'm having a YouTube channel. Everybody makes it look easy, but I struggle sometimes.
When did you start this?
I started it November of last year.
So it's like almost a year anniversary is coming up.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I know it's the anniversary when I get a bill from Zoom or from Camtasia, that's who I use for editing. I found that worked for me. I tried other ones that are great, but Camtasia seemed to work for me. And then for my wife is telling me about thumbnails and the importance of thumbnails. You know, she's a producer, and she's not one to get in front of a camera. Me, I'm a ham all my life. But I know my subject matter, and it's something I'm passionate about. I go to model airplane shows. I build model airplanes. I go to museums. I go to air shows. And my wife and I just completed a road trip through Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, and Montana, going to places of aviation interest.
Oh, wow. So I bet you got some good interviews there.
I did. And some of them, I don't go so much for the interview as for the aircraft and little blurbs that I tease on Instagram, and then I put the episode. And I try to keep the episodes anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. My interviews are typically an hour, but I find that sometimes I might need to split that in 2 half-hour episodes. I'm learning with the audience. A lot of people, this is a fast-paced society we live in, and sometimes if they're not driving, they don't have an hour to sit and listen. So I'm trying to adapt to that as I learn what it is that I'm doing.
So what started this interest in aviation?
Oh gosh, my dad used to be on radar airplanes, and the one airplane at Castle that has the big belly and then the big thing on top, well, my dad was a radar operator on that. So when he got out of the Air Force, my mom started popping out kids, and he built models. And then when we were big enough to handle, he would start taking us to the air shows. And I personally, all 3 of us, you know, there's 8 kids, and us boys and my one sister especially, but took an interest in the airplanes. But unfortunately, I thought, you know, I wanted to fly B-52s. I grew up near Maythram and McClellan traffic pattern. I fell in love with the B-52, but like a lot of people in high school, you get distracted, and my distraction was discipline. I didn't have any. So when I turned 17, this is when Reagan, my dad signed me into the Army so I could, you know, kind of grow up. So I went on tanks. And then when I got out of, I was on tanks for 3 years, went to Germany. There's a funny story I put on YouTube about how I went AWOL in the desert for 4 days. And they found me pulling guard duty at an operations center with somebody else's M16. And I'm not going to tell the ending, but I didn't get any trouble. And there was a reason why. But so
we
when
have to watch it on to see why you didn't get any trouble?
What's that?
We have to watch to see why you didn't get any
No, actually, I'll tell you. It took 49 minutes to tell the story, and I have a lot of stories from the Army because I was kind of out of control, because I went in at 17, I was still growing up. They used to make me go back in the barracks to pretend like I went and got my chest. I smoked cigarettes, so they would say, hey, Wood don't have a note from his mom, get us we called them squares. But yeah, so my first sergeant, back in the early 80s, things were not politically correct. So
not at all.
not at all. Yeah, and so my first sergeant, I'm kind of new to the unit, and he saw me smoking. And he asked me, what are you smoking, Wood? And I said, a menthol cigarette, Cools. He goes, oh, that makes you a homosexual. And I said, well, if I'm a homosexual, why is your daughter always calling me to get me to come to your house? And he lost it. I'm funny. I'm a funny guy.
Oh my goodness.
And I didn't know the history behind his daughter and the 3rd and 10th Cavalry. And he guarded her like a hawk. He was kind of like those daddies against daughters dating mentality. And I didn't know that. I'd only seen her once, because it wasn't uncommon to have some of the tank commanders or whoever, their wives bring food to the day room, cookies, cakes, really cool stuff. I'd only seen her once, but I didn't pay no mind. I was more interested in my Mustang that I buy, you know. And he just flipped out, and he put his hands on my chest and pushed me. And I told him, you can't push me. You're not allowed to push me. I got witnesses. He goes, no, you don't. There's nobody around. And all those 8 people that we were all smoking and joking with were walking away. And he started thumping my chest. He said, I'm going to get you back. He goes, and I'll bide my time. But I'm not through with you. And I'm like, okay, you know. He did. We deployed to Fort Irwin in Barstow, California, to the desert. And we're going to play 30 days of war games, and I'm amped. There's Phantoms, Skyhawks, Corsairs, Cobras, you know, a lot of good. Yeah, I'm like, ooh, loving it. But we're prepping the tanks, and I'm the driver, so I'm responsible for lubrication and tension of the track, and it makes your life easier if you can get that dialed in, because you could drive with no hands. He drives up in the Jeep, and he'd been in the Army before Vietnam, and back then we still had a lot of Vietnam veterans in the Army, and there were a few of them you didn't mess with. You know, they didn't have time for your jokes, and he apparently was one of them, because he told me, I'm going with him, get my gear. He called for my TC, tank commander, and there's a picture of my tank commander in the video. He pops up, what's going on, Buffalo? We call him Buffalo. And he said, I'm taking your man. Your loader's going to drive. You don't need a loader. We're not shooting. Okay? So I'm like, okay, well, see what he's got going on. So we're driving, and I lean forward, I ask him, where are we going? And he has a driver stop, and he goes, remember that comment about my daughter? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you got your cigarettes? I said, yeah, I've got about 4 or 5 packs in my bag and in my pocket. He goes, good, because you're going to need them, because I'm putting you on 30 days KP. And I said, well, I can't be on. And he told me to shut up, and we drove. And we drove to a mobile kitchen amongst these big boulders. And when we pulled up, that mess sergeant already knew I was a problem, because he's whittling. He's got a tattoo that says West by God, Virginia. Where are you from? I said, California. So now again, I'm a homosexual again with these guys, you know. And so he points at it with his knife. He goes, this is the problem, child? And my first sergeant says, yep, he's all yours for the duration. And I'm like, there's that word again. And they intended to keep me out there for 30 days. And he told me to put my bag with the rats. Well, the rats are the discipline platoon at Fort Hood. Was one World War II barracks surrounded by concertina wire, and those guys ran around with their helmets were painted yellow. If they don't do what they're told for 4 weeks, they're kicked out of the Army. If they want to stay in the Army, they volunteer to go in this boot camp.
Oh my gosh.
Well, those are the rats. They shave their heads, and they're not good guys. They're getting kicked out of the Army.
Man, there's like a boot camp for boot camp.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So they asked me, what am I getting kicked out for? And I said, I'm not. I just made made top man. We call it top 2. Made first sergeant mad, and he's putting me on KP. He said for a duration, and they think that's funny. Then they want to know if I got any cigarettes. I said, yeah, I'll hook you guys up, like a couple of cigarettes each. Well, now they want more after they went through that, so they develop an attitude, because I'm not going to give them my smokes. You know, I started to say a bad word, but you swinging Richards, you should have got your own, knowing you're going to come out here. Well, the Army kept them 30 days longer because they're going to put them on KP.
Oh.
So I'm with these guys that are getting kicked out. And the Sergeant of the Cooks calls them rats. I'm a rat. We were talking smack about it was night, we're around a little fire, we didn't have to have discipline for light, and we're talking smack about West by God, and this dirt clod just came out of the dark, and poof, hit Zimzag right in the chest. He falls backwards, and that guy comes walking out of the dark, and I was a little impressed with that. That was cool how he did that, and he points his knife. When he talks, he always points a knife. Want to know if I have a problem? I'm like, no, I'm happy here. And so anyway, long story short, I started memorizing bumper numbers of the deuce and halves that were coming through, taking things, bringing things in. And there was one that was pretty consistent. So I talked to the driver, where do you go? Where do you go? Where do you go? Oh, I got to go the 3rd or 10th. And after that, I got to go to Gary Owens for, blah, blah, blah. And I end up packing my bag and sneaking onto his truck when he came in early in the morning. And I got underneath the canvas, and then we left. And I disappeared. And I heard 2 doors, and I looked through the back window once the sun came up, and there's a big hairy arm that says West by God, Virginia. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's going to beat me up. So long story short, I ended up at a tactical operations center pretending I'm coming back from Red Cross leave, and I'm supposed to do guard duty. because the cooks were doing guard duty. So they're more than happy to give me their M16, and I'm on guard duty, and I'm doing this for like 4 days till I got caught by my first sergeant who was driving through. And I was sent back to West by God, Virginia, who attempted to beat me up amongst the rocks, but I had to get out of that. And when we got back to the rear, they told me they're going to kick me out of the Army, they're going to bust my rank. But the one guy that drove the first sergeant around, he came into my room, he goes, they're not going to do nothing to you. He goes, you don't know it, but you got them. And I said, how do I have them? And I'm worried. He says, they never reported you missing. And they're hoping you don't make a big deal of that. So I went to the adjutant general, I told him the story. This lieutenant lawyer guy investigated, came back to me and said, here's the deal. You know, you got some good guys there that made a mistake. They made 4 mistakes. So you shut up, they're going to shut up, they're not going to retaliate, and you're going to go to Germany. I'm like, okay. And then when I went to Germany, that became a whole nother adventure.
Oh my goodness.
But I like airplanes, so that's...
I love this. You're the interesting person. I know you interview other people, but I love all your stories.
Oh, you don't. Some I can't tell. Some I can, and the stories were, well, I had over like 1,200 views on my YouTube channel about that story. And one gentleman made a comment that he wants to hear more. And my producer tells me which ones I can tell and not tell. But I've been telling these at family functions. I
think you should write the ones down that you can't tell and have them come out one day.
After I've departed this planet.
Right. And there's
yeah. But airplanes have always been my passion. When I was stationed in Germany, they were given a class on air defense. And it was horrible. Misinformation. We don't need to worry about a MiG-25 Foxbat. Those things are high altitude interceptors. They're not going to be down with the tanks. So after I spoke up, and
here
you don't
starting
need these
trouble again.
Well, it was kind of like painful, you know. It's like when I watch the news and they say, "Well, today a C-21." I'm going, "It's not. It's a C-141. Why do they do?" You know. I'm like arching my chair. Why do they torture me? But so I ended up giving classes on enemy aircraft and NATO aircraft because, you know, nowadays it's hard to tell. They all look alike. Now the computers design them. But that's it. I've been to hundreds of air shows. I enjoy building model airplanes. I've been approached by a family that their father was a lieutenant colonel. He flew for 35 years. He built over 500 model airplanes. And and they were selling them to people that liked them, not somebody that's going to resell on eBay or something. So as I got to know the family and purchasing, I probably bought like 60. But I have I've got this man cave that looks like Pee Wee's Herman met Boeing and Lockheed Martin.
Oh, I'd love to see that picture.
My poor wife, she feels like she needs a fly swatter in there, you know. But I do have photographs of that, and I put it on my YouTube.
So we get to subscribe to The Flying Dutchman. How often are new episodes coming out?
I try to put out a YouTube interview at least every 4 weeks.
Okay.
I put out an episode once a week of visiting somewhere or talking about something. One of the focuses that I did was I looked at aircraft on poles, gate guards they call them. I have an episode I'm working with Coast Guard Air Station, Sacramento. They fly the C-27 Spartans. I had to get vetted by Homeland Security. So now we're just looking for the date. And then here in Fresno, you guys are fortunate. You got the 144th Griffins over here, the F-15s. And before that, they flew the F-16s. And when you're at Castle, you probably saw that with the black tail and the Griffin on there. That's a Fresno bird. So I'm going through their vetting process because they have, as much as I'd like to get to the flight line where the Eagles are parked and talk to some of those people, which I have at air shows, but there are 4 aircraft just inside the gate that you can't access unless you've gone through the vetting process. You know, they just want to make sure I'm not going to pull a pin or something, right? And F-102, F-106, F-4, T-33. It looks like an F-86 Sabre dog, which is special, not just your typical Sabre, but a Sabre dog, and those are different. and they're special to a geek like me. They're pretty cool.
Have you ever thought about bringing some of these classes back that you used to do over there, just like for fun, get some educational classes? Like,
no, nobody would go. They go to the museums. They go to air shows. You know, and we're fortunate. Castle especially. That's my favorite.
Because you live nearby. I think it's between both of us, right?
It is. I live up in the Lodi area. Yeah, good wineries in Lodi.
Well, thank you so much for coming. You're also accessible on Instagram, the Flying Dutchman podcast. So if anyone has ideas or wants to be on there, they can contact you directly. They can DM you on that, right?
Yeah, they are. I try to have at least 5 to 7 episodes in the can.
Right.
Yeah.
So people can like come and then they can come see you. We can come to your house and see the flying. I always see American.
Nobody can come to the house.
Well, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for driving so far. This is a real treat.
Yeah, I'm sorry I talked your ear off.
No, you're great. We're all going to subscribe. The Flying Dutch.
You know what? You can't put the in front of, otherwise.
No, just Flying Dutchman podcast.
Otherwise you're going to be seeing ships and trains and Flying Dutchman podcast.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh, I must confess, dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.